Good afternoon, everyone. So, just watched the press conference when President Trump and the whole administration and a bunch of veterans and Joe Rogan was there talking about the executive order for accelerating medical treatments for serious mental illness. And I remember, first of all, thank you, Mr. President, Joe Rogan, and everyone that's involved in the whole administration. It was pretty cool. After President Trump signed it, he gave the pen to Joe Rogan, which was awesome. Because, like Joe Rogan was saying, that's true. That I'm like from my experience, when I was addicted to fentanyl, so many people told me go do ibogaine. Like you do it once, maybe twice, and you're done. You don't have to go through the withdrawals. You don't have to do all that. I've gone through severe withdrawals from fentanyl cold turkey several times. I've done it inpatient at VA and taken the drugs. I don't like doing it that way. It makes me really sick, and it's way harder to do. But there's new ibogaine treatment, and there's a whole. It says it's not just for ibogaine. It's policy. All right, by the authority vested in me as president. By the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Section 1, Purpose and Policy. Policymakers in the medical field have long struggled to address the burden of suicide and mental illness rates in America. Today, over 14 million adults have a serious mental illness, defined as having a diagnosable mental, behavioral, or emotional disorder that substantially interferes with a person's life and ability to function, and about 8 million are on prescription medication drugs for these conditions. Suicide rates tragically increased by 37% from 2000 to 2018. During my first term, we made historic progress in helping those struggling with some of the most insidious mental illness, and suicide rates decreased by 5% from 2018 to 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic and the Biden administration's prolonged shutdown stunted this progress, and suicide rates rebounded upward again to their peak in 2022. Critically, veterans often suffer in great measures from this tragedy. For over 20 years, there have been more than 6,000 veteran suicides per year, and the current veteran suicide rate is more than twice as much as the non-veteran adult population. Individuals suffering from major depressive disorder and substance abuse disorder, among other mental illnesses, can relapse or not fully respond to standard medical and psychiatric therapies. Despite massive federal investment into researching potential advancements in mental health care and treatment, our medical research has yet to produce approved therapies that promote enduring improvements in the mental health condition of these most complex patients. Innovative methods are needed to find long-term solutions for these Americans beyond existing prescription medications. Psychedelic drugs, including ibogaine compounds, show potential in clinical studies to address serious mental illness for patients whose conditions persist after completing standard therapy. Indeed, the Food and Drug Administration has granted breakthrough therapy designation to specific psychedelic drugs, and there are numerous products currently in the clinical trial pipeline for review of safety and efficacy. It is the policy of my administration to accelerate innovative research models and appropriate drug approvals to increase access to psychedelic drugs that would save lives and reverse the crisis of serious mental illness in America. That's part one. So, let me say something about that. That all sounds great. I'm just the way that some of them are speaking. What I'm concerned about, the way they're saying it. They're like, they want to fast track this like the trials for HIV, and we all know what happened for the trials for HIV. They started giving out drugs that killed everyone that they told had HIV. It destroyed their immune system. It was worse than radiation. And they say they want to treat it just like the cancer industry. Well, just like look at the cancer industry. If you're not using natural medicine, how are they treating the cancer industry? They're making oncology trillions of dollars. That's what the cancer industry is. If you're going to treat it like the cancer industry, I'd rather just go and get it myself. But if you guys are going to do it properly, which you should, because we've been praying about this for years, just like the Strengthen program. When I was at the VA, when I left the last time, and I told them, I was like, I'm done taking your drugs. You guys need to be working on using psychedelics and cannabis to heal the brain, because the main problem with the drug industry is it causes more side effects. It's an iatrogenic medical industry that we live in, an iatrogenic disease, and that means that it medical malpractice basically from your doctors, overprescribing, underprescribing, toxic drug interactions, poisoning from radiation and chemotherapy, and other immune system poisoning, complications from implants, too many surgeries, stuff like that, infections from surgeries. That's iatrogenic disease. And the number one form of iatrogenic disease is from side effects from pharmaceutical drugs that are prescribed by doctors. So you have the one side, the natural side of medicine, who wants to do this properly, and they say how, because they want to know how. What was the question? They want to know why prescription and conventional ways didn't work, because they asked the veterans there from their experience, because they have taken ibogaine. I wanted to take ibogaine. I never had the opportunity to go sit with like a shaman and do it. But first of all, I wouldn't say the main problem is the void in the spirit, the void in the heart. Like if you have severe mental illness, you're probably not, or not severe mental illness, severe anger, severe demons. Like mine was fentanyl, and I was addicted to that demon. I was addicted to cocaine as well. I still struggle with alcohol. Those are demons that get attached to your life, and God is the only way to cure it, through the Holy Spirit. I believe after I quit using fentanyl, I went through it cold turkey, and I used kratom and THCA and CBD, because the THCA crystals, it helped with my nervous system. My nervous system was so shot. Yeah, that's what the question is. How come it doesn't work? Because from the drugs that they're prescribing, it's going to create more amyloid, like prescription drugs, pharmaceutical prescription drugs that are filled with just dyes. They call them ingredients, but it's toxic drugs, chemical fillers, artificial starches, dyes, leftover war chemicals, heavy metals, and that's what they call prescription drugs, and that's what they call their medicine. That's iatrogenic medicine. So if they want to know how to do this properly, because they're asking them, how long is it going to take? First of all, this is beautiful, because when I was at the VA, that's when they started this, right after I left, and I remember making the video about the Strengthen program, and I was crying in that video, like, we're going to save so many veterans' lives, and look, 7 years later almost, 6 years later, it's happening. But, so, I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but so, they want to know why it didn't work, because the artificial drugs and the iatrogenic medicine, especially pharmaceutical drugs, they cause amyloid plaque. Amyloid plaque, so you have your neural pathways and the artificial starches. So let's just start with amyloid plaque. Amyloid plaque is like a plaque in your arteries. Like if they say you have plaque in your arteries, and they, you know what I mean, with the heart valves and all that stuff. It's the same thing with the neural pathways. Plaque can build up in there, and plaque builds up from artificial starches, prescription drugs, heavy metals, alcohol, cigarettes. It's from like an unnatural toxic poisonings. It's from the IG Farben, Rockefeller medical industry is what's causing all of these diseases, and they're using the same people who created them to treat them, so that way they can keep money in the pharmaceutical companies' pockets. It has nothing to do with medicine. It's all about money. So that's why this is a step in the right direction, and I pray that they do it properly. Second of all, those drugs also constrict the neural pathways. So like your neural pathway, your information, where all your brain travels, tells your brain, tells your hands, your fingers, your mouth, everything, how to work, your nervous system, your immune system. If that's being affected from toxic drugs, what they call medicine, that's why it creates more drugs. So and it damages your it causes disintegration on the nerve endings and the dendrites, because your nervous endings, and then you have the dendrites where they're supposed to send each other information. And with so the cure to all of this is to study neurogenesis. And like I said, from 2019 when I was talking about this, they need to start using psychedelic drugs and cannabis, because cannabis, first of all, dilates the neural pathways, and THC dissolves amyloid plaque. What psychedelics do, they rebuild the neural pathways that have been damaged, and it makes new connections, and it heals old connections. That's why, because like when you have trauma in your brain will disassociate, and then that part of the brain doesn't want to, you know what I mean? Or if you do too many drugs, your neurons in your brain start to disintegrate, and that information doesn't travel, especially if they're giving you drugs that they're calling medicine, pharmaceutical drugs, and those are class A tryptamines anyway. Those are psychedelics and tryptamines. The antidepressants and all that, I hope they don't try to sneak that in. We need to keep psychedelic medicine separate from pharmaceutical medicine, unless the pharmaceutical industry is going to start making real medicine. But those are drugs, this is medicine. And yeah, and the proper way to do it is you need to have a trip guide, because anytime I've tripped when I was in a bad mood, I didn't have a trip guide around me, I did it unplanned, unexpectedly, it's not always a bad trip, but it's not as fun as it could be. But after I've been off the fentanyl for a long time, almost 3 years this July, and cocaine, um, I have used mushrooms and LSD before. Or before, I've used it many times, but recently, in the past like year and a half, I used some mushrooms and some LSD, and it made like my awareness way better, because like I was in a state of grace then, at least, not a state of grace. It was in a happier state. I was not pinned by fentanyl and crack cocaine, and had somewhat of a decent life. I'm still working on my life. This life was getting better, but the first 2 years of getting off fentanyl and crack was horrible. So, but using those psychedelics, what that did for me, it actually made me want to pray. I went and I observed the moon, and cause first it was like, I don't know, we tripped probably for like 14 hours, and we went all night into the next day. So I watched the moon, and then I watched the sunrise, and like I was right by the huge lake. It was just like amazing. I was like, God is right there. Like, I know I am at the center of creation. And it just started making me realize more how God created the world, what our purpose is. And then, that's why. But I've never tried Ibogaine. I heard Ibogaine is like, it'll pull the demons out of you. It'll rip that right out of you. Like I don't, I've never done it, but I've heard it's like, what you call it, like DMT times 1,000 or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's what you would need trip guides. You would need experienced people, and you would have to set goals and intentions. And then I think once people get off of their demons of addiction, whatever it was, their past, their mental illness, whatever it is, whatever needs to be addressed and treated, I think it's a spiritual problem, because then it'll lead you back to God. Like, it makes me happier knowing that they're going to use this type of medicine to treat, I think especially with suicidal veterans, like, and suicidal anyone. You don't have to just be a veteran, but they have to be careful with it, because the way half of the room sounds like, yes, this is beautiful and we need to use natural medicine, and the other side is just thinking about how they're going to try to synthesize and make money off of it. That's what I feel, and that's my concern about it. But long story short, thank God I've been praying for this because like President Trump said before he even started, he said, I signed the Right to Try Act in 2018. So you do have the right to try any medicine if it's going to help you with your disease or your ailment. So I pray that these doctors who have sworn an oath to first do no harm, let no harm be done to them, let their food be thy medicine, let their medicine be thy food. You know, natural medicine that grows from the earth, we could consider that food because, I don't know, certain psychedelics, I guess, should be regulated. It shouldn't be in everyone's hands, especially crazy people. But yeah, that's how you would do it. You would do your research and you would learn how to get rid of amyloid plaque because the problem is they try to treat mental illness and then it leads to another thing or any like with any like especially people who get medication for blood pressure. What does that do? It affects the cholesterol and the cholesterol in your brain. Your brain is mostly fat. You need good fats, healthy fats in your brain to work. So that's the problem. If we don't study how the brain works and or they already know how the brain works. They just don't study it properly. They don't do the right research. They have an agenda. It's just like if their agenda is okay, well let's see how we can synthesize this natural plant, then it's a horrible. But if they're gonna say, hey, we're gonna need natural healers, we're gonna need trip guides, experienced people, we're gonna need people to have to set goals and intentions, give them maybe 2 or 3 days. You know, one day you trip, the next day you recover, the next day you go, you know what I mean? Or if it takes a little bit longer for you, stay for a week. I don't know how long it takes to do it. Some people are good in one day, but it's just, you hear the doctors, the way the doctors talk, and then you hear the people who have actually succeeded. And like President Trump, the way President Trump was asking, I think he actually wants to help. And it was cool how Joe Rogan, he said, I just texted him, and he texted me back. He was like, sounds good. You want to get FDA approval? Let's make it happen. Like, wow, you know what I mean? Then he's in there signing it, gives him the pen. It was cool. That made me smile today. But I still pray, continuously pray that anyone who is suffering with mental illness, suicidal tendencies, all that, that just pray, you know? Maybe you don't want to pray, you don't know how to pray. Just silence your heart, listen. Say, God, I don't, you know, I don't know how to pray to you. I'm at my bottom. I need some help. You know, please send me a sign, send me an angel, send me some direction, some motivation. I don't want to be this way anymore. I'm sorry if I offended everyone around me. I'm sorry if I offended you. Please help me, you know. Let's just talk to God like your father. Like if you need forgiveness from your father, that's how you would talk to him. Because that's all it is. You just strayed and abandoned the path. You need to get back on the path. No matter what you did in your past, if you truly are sorry for it, you can ask for forgiveness. And because mental illness sucks, you know, I deal with it. Still been dealing with it for a long time. But anyway, this is a good start. They wanted to know how are they going to do it. That's how you do it. You do it properly. You don't act like there isn't a real problem in the medical industry and iatrogenic disease and overprescribing toxic drugs and calling it medicine. You have to address that first. You have to learn about neurogenesis, getting rid of amyloid plaque, reconnecting neural pathways, dilating the neural pathways with cannabis and dissolving amyloid plaque with cannabis, but re-healing with the neural pathways and the dendrites with psilocybin and psychedelics, real natural psychedelics. Psilocybin, I know, I use kratom still. I don't know if that's considered a psychedelic, but I have a tea that I make and they have this little tiny baby scooper and you just put one scoop. I do two. I do a red and a green and I mix them. But I don't even drink that every day anymore. I just drink that usually when I want to get a good workout or if I have to use a lot of energy for the day. But it's like, I don't know, I could talk a long time about this. You guys don't address medicine like Hippocrates told you to, so now's a good time to prove me wrong and say, hey, actually we do want to do it the right way. You know, my concerns are you trying to fast track this like the cancer industry and fast track it like the HIV pill. Well, like I said, those drugs is what caused all that. They were destroying people's immune systems, creating is iatrogenic death is the number one death in America from iatrogenic disease. So we need to stop iatrogenic disease, learn about the human immune system, because once the neural pathways and neurogenesis, then your neural pathways work, then your hormone systems can work with your endocrine systems, so that way your organ systems work properly, so that way your immune system works properly. And then you can be in neurogenesis and in a homeostasis. People say, I think homeostasis is the opposite of disease. Like you're always, but if you look at it technically, it's, yeah, homeostasis. You're constantly improving and healing yourself instead of being imbalanced with disease and illness. So treat medicine like medicine and treat mental illness like medicine, not like a customer. That's how we will do it. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. Thank you, President Trump, Joe Rogan, Bobby Kennedy, the veterans that were there, the whole administration, even the FDA. I'm going to thank you, but I'm going to watch you, and I pray that you do your jobs correctly, because I'm tired of having every few months, every couple of years, every other year, or I don't know how, it seems like you guys are always just changing positions and blaming someone else for something. And, you know, I hope we can get something solid going here and have real medicine and do it properly. All right. Thank you very much. And thank you, Father, for obviously my God, Father, God is listening, and he wants people to be healed. We'll return back to how Hippocrates taught us medicine, not pharma, IG Farben. If you put a B before IG, that's Big Farben, Big Pharma. They knew what they wanted, but we need to get them back on track too. We need to, I don't even want to talk about them. Let's start here. That's how you do it. You address the problem. You stop denying that drugs and your pharmacies and your prophets and your doctors, that they're not doing their jobs correctly, most of them, especially the doctors that are in debt, that are just like, here. The ones that don't care about them, we should correct them. But for all you guys and keep asking, how is this going to do? We need to do this. And that's how you're going to do it. And you're going to do it properly. All right? I know I repeated myself like 10 times, but happy Saturday. Have a blessed day. Thank you, President Trump and the administration, Joe Rogan and everybody. And God bless our veterans, all of our service members, all of our active duty, and our veterans. I pray for, may God have mercy on all of our veterans who did take their lives themselves. I pray for them and their families, so that way that we could prevent this from going on. 6,000 veterans a year, that's ridiculous. If we addressed it, we could prevent it. We could be happy again. God bless you all. Peace.